Terry and Ron?
Ready to go when you are.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for attending this City Council hearing today. My name is Ed Flynn. I'm the chair of the Committee on City and Neighborhood Services. In accordance with Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 executive order modifying certain requirements of the open meeting law and relieving public bodies of certain requirements, including the requirement that public bodies conduct its meetings in a public place that is open and physically accessible to the public, the City Council will be conducting this hearing virtually. This enables the City Council to carry out its responsibilities while adhering to public health recommendations and ensuring public access to its deliberations through adequate alternative means. This public hearing is being recorded and live streamed on www.boston.gov/citycounciltv. It will also be rebroadcast at a later date on Xfinity 8, RCN 82, and FiOS 964. Anyone that would like to testify on this matter, please email ron.cobb@boston.gov for the Zoom link. That is Ron, ron.cobb, COBB, @boston.gov for the Zoom link. Today's hearing is on docket number 0222, order for a hearing to discuss water rescue infrastructure in the city of Boston. This matter is sponsored by myself and City Councilor Lydia Edwards and was referred to the Committee on City Neighborhood Services on January 27, 2021. I'm just checking to see what colleagues are here right now so I can recognize them. I will recognize them when they do get on onto the meeting. My colleague, City Councilor Edwards, has a letter that she would like me to read into the record at this time. Absence of for docket 022, order for a hearing to discuss water rescue infrastructure in the city of Boston. Dear Chair Flynn, I regret to inform you that I will be unable to attend docket 0222, order for a hearing to discuss water rescue infrastructure in the city of Boston. As the district council with the most waterfront in the district, this particular topic is of utmost importance to me. Please be assured that my staff will be attending and taking notes. I will be following up with you personally. Many thanks for your continued steadfast leadership in this area. Sincerely, Lydia Edwards, Boston City Council, District 1. Boston is a city surrounded by water, and over the years, with the increase of visitors and tourists to our city, we unfortunately see incidents of people falling into the ocean. In recent years, there have been several incidents where people have fallen into the water and required assistance from our first responders. As a result, residents have advocated for life-saving rings to be installed at Fort Point and near public docks in case of accidents of people falling in. There are also suggestions that all docks and marinas along Fort Point and the waterfront should be equipped with water rescue equipment, such as life-saving rings and other flotation device as part of the city's public safety plan. So we are happy to discuss existing infrastructure in place for rescuing those who fall into the ocean, as well as talking about ways that we can further improve water safety for all. I'm really honored to have so many dedicated city and state employees that are here with us. And I want to recognize you for being here, but more importantly, for your leadership on this issue, but other issues on public safety across our city and our Commonwealth. Our invited panel today includes the Boston Fire Commissioner, Commissioner Jack Dempsey, Sergeant Michael Coyne, who's a harbor master for the Boston Police Department. We also have the fire chief from the Massachusetts Port Authority, Fire Chief Joe DeGrace. We also have Thomas Butler from Massachusetts Port Authority in the Government Affairs Division. We also have a community panel as well. And the other part of this hearing, I wanted to focus on swimming and making sure young people across our city, especially our students, also have the availability to get swimming lessons, whether they're through the YMCA, they're through the BCYF, Boston Center Youth and Families, or through the public schools. Swimming lessons for children and students is very important. We have James Morton, who's the CEO of the YMCA, that is here with us. We have Amy Gamachi Turner, Chief Program Officer for the YMCA of Greater Boston, who's also here with us. We also have Sarah McCammond, who's with the Harborfront Alliance, who provided written testimony, which I have, but I'm going to give her the option of weighing in as well. At this time, I would like to ask the city and state panel that are here to offer opening statements. I would like to ask if the fire commissioner would like to go first. Commissioner Dempsey, thank you for being with us. Commissioner Dempsey, thank you for your leadership on this issue, but so many issues across the city of Boston.
Thank you, Council Flynn. So the Boston Fire Department has a large amount of water rescue capabilities. We have a Marine unit that's comprised of a fully manned unit. And they often conduct drills with the Coast Guard, Massport, Boston Police, State Police, and Environmental Police Marine units. The Marine unit also carries a side scan sonar for underwater recovery. We also have a dive team, which is 20 divers when it's fully activated. The team is assigned to various companies in the city and upon request are sent to the incident scene. They drill once a month on all types of incidents, including ice rescue, deep water, shallow water, piers, etc. And they're very well trained and have been called to incidents in other towns. We also have a dive team boat that they deploy. We have swift water rescue teams. Both engine and ladder companies in the city carry life rings for quick deployment. All Boston ladder companies have survival suits that are donned while en route to the water rescue, to the water incident. And they drill on water rescue with the suits, which allow you to float and become a flotation device for the person being rescued. Both Rescue 1 and Rescue 2 have Zodiac boats available for quick deployment. This past year, we've already had 106 water calls. They vary in different types from, sometimes we get a call, somebody's on a surfboard or whatever out there just resting. So some of these calls are really not a rescue, but nevertheless, they're a call. So some of the recommendations that I would ask, so in order to put these resources into action, we need to be notified, and then even the quickest response does take time. Whenever a rescue is necessary, whether it's a fire or a water rescue, it's always time sensitive. With water rescues, you also have to deal with accessibility, freezing water, darkness, and currents. The way to improve survivability at these incidents would be to get direct assistance from the public and property owners in the area. The fastest and cheapest solution is to have life rings or a type of flotation device readily available for immediate deployment. Throwing a life ring to someone in the water will save their life. It gives us valuable time to respond and recover them before they sink below the surface. A submerged person is much more difficult to locate and survivability decreases rapidly. This simple device will keep them above water even when the water is freezing cold. A light and whistle attached can also be helpful, especially at night. If every restaurant, hotel, or business on the waterfront had one of these available, it would make it would make a life-saving difference. They could make it look nautical with the name of the restaurant or hotel on it. All Coast Guard cutters have the name of the ship on them. So with availability comes necessary training for the staff. They should be instructed to throw the device to the person in the water and then call 911 immediately. A rope attached will allow for retrieval. A drill on how to throw a life ring would benefit everyone and could be a fun exercise. Also helpful will be ladders ascending to the water from piers at different locations. The problem with this is that the ladders often get damaged by boats and the effects of salt water. Finally, better lighting on piers and at the water's edge would help. There are often tripping hazards near the edge that might be avoided with better lighting. So that's pretty much all I have for now, and I'm available for any questions. Thank you, Council. You're muted. I think you're muted.
Thank you, Commissioner. Your comments were very informative and very helpful. And as you know, I use these hearings as an opportunity to educate the public that might be watching, and hopefully we're able to educate the public on these critical issues. So thank you for that explanation, Commissioner Dempsey. Let me go next to Sergeant Michael Coyne, Harbor Master at the Boston Police Department, someone we have great respect for, their team as well. So thank you, Sergeant, for being with us. Thank you for the tremendous work your team does in the ocean and working closely with residents as well. Thank you, Sergeant.
Good morning, Councilor Flynn. Thank you very much. I just wanted to go back. In 2021, the Boston Police Harbor Patrol Unit has either assisted or has been responsible for 13 water rescues this year, 3 body recoveries, and as well as 20 alert 2s from Logan Airport when a plane is in distress. We will scramble units and have them on standby. Relative to this infrastructure bill, I had just gone online and just started shopping around a little, and to install a life ring cabinet, which will come with the plastic cabinet, a life ring, and anywhere from 50 to 75 feet of line, ranges anywhere from $250 to about $500 per unit. So it's not a huge investment. It's very cost effective. Probably the biggest thing would be maintaining it over time. Sunlight will break down the polypropylene line on the life rings, so it might have like an inspection date. This could be something, as the fire commissioner stated, if every restaurant or waterfront property were required through the building codes to maintain it, have like a yearly or bi-yearly inspection of the lines and the equipment as far as replacement. And then the replacement cost once the cabinet is installed is nominal. They're about $100 a piece, including the line. So it's not a huge burden. And also I'm kind of we have a missing person incident that's going on. I have a boat on standby, and it may possibly turn into a water recovery. So I may have to leave the meeting early, just waiting further information. But as far as water infrastructure, I know downtown, where I served as a patrol supervisor for 10 years, all the patrol supervisor cars had life rings and they had throw bags. A throw bag is it's a canvas bag with about 50 feet of line. Has a shorter end of line that you step on, and then you can heave the bag out to somebody in the water. Very cheap. They're about $50 a piece. So as far as the equipment, it's reasonably priced, and I think it can go a long way. unfortunately, we live in a cold climate, and the first thing to go when people are submerged in the water are their extremities. They lose their arms, they lose their legs, and they, because the body wants to shut down and maintain the core. So that's when people run into problems when they go and fall off of these piers. You know, a lot of these piers at low tide, you could have 20 feet of sheer wall to the top of the pier with no means of getting out. And that's where some of the people late night have fallen into problems. And over the years, you know, they hit the water and they can only stay afloat for so long in the freezing temperatures. So I didn't look at recovery ladders, but I know they're out there. Could be something as simple as a Jacob's ladder that you pull 2 pins and the thing unfolds. But I'm sure they probably fall in the same cost range as the life rings. And I mean, I could look into that a little further and try to get a price point on that.
Well, thank you, Sergeant, for your testimony. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you for your leadership and the leadership of your team as well. And certainly you guys are on standby now, so feel free to jump off at this meeting anytime. Not an issue. At this time, I'm going to ask Tommy Butler, who is the government affairs person at Massport, if he will introduce Chief Joe DeGrace. Tommy?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for having us this morning. My name is Tommy Butler. I'm the Deputy Director of Community Relations and Government Affairs at Massport. And just to start off, at Massport, safety and security is the top priority in our mission. We also own a significant amount of waterfront property in South Boston, East Boston, and Charlestown that are under ground leases. So we greatly appreciate the opportunity to participate, and also to you and Councilor Edwards for filing the motion for this important hearing on water safety and infrastructure. And I'm joined by my colleague in Massport Fire, Chief Joe DeGrace, who will lead the testimony.
Good morning. I'm Chief Joe DeGrace. I'm Chief of Massport Fire Rescue. As you know, we're here at the airport, and our water infrastructure is designed to make rescues for any type of aircraft or any incident that happens in the water. We're surrounded 75% by water. We have to be prepared. So what we have available for the traveling public and for the city of Boston and the neighboring communities up and down the shore here of Massachusetts, we have a fully staffed Marine unit. Our Marine captains all have their U.S. Coast Guard merchants Mariner 100-ton license, and we have a staff that's on 4 groups, four people per group. And then we have a number of people back at the station that are also certified to operate on our Marine unit. So in case you need us over there, the city of Boston, fire department, Coast Guard, Boston PD, we're available to respond and to assist in all capacities. We have 3 Marine units. We have Marine 31, which is our big vessel, a 79-foot vessel, which has the capability of working as a rescue platform for up to 100 people. We have the capability to deploy life rafts that can support 300 people. We designed that for aircraft of different sizes, which are also valuable in any type of water incident that we have in the harbor or further out. We have Marine 32, which is our moose boat, which is a 38-foot boat that has the capability of having 80 plus people on life rafts in case we have an incident within the harbor. They are also manned by a Marine captain that has their Merchant Mariner 100-ton license. We host a number of events, exercises in the water with Boston Police, and the Coast Guard. We just actually did one about a month ago, which is our disaster exercise, which we can't accomplish without the help of Boston Fire, Boston PD, and the Coast Guard. And those are always valuable to have. Any support that the community of the city of Boston can give for more training, more joint training for all of our departments is valuable. Like I said, we respond 15 miles from the center of the airport all the way out north and south. We've been as far as Plymouth. We go as far as Gloucester if needed. And with all the properties that Massport lease in the Boston waterfront, we will respond there to assist Boston Fire as needed. We've done, since the beginning of the year, about 100 calls of all different types. A lot of rescues to assist Boston Fire, Boston Police. We do our alerts that we have to stand by in case something happens to an aircraft that falls short on a takeoff problem. You know, we see it as a major part of our operation. And Massport spends a lot of money to make sure that our Marine unit is up and running and fully staffed and fully trained. And so this is value. This meeting is great that people recognize how valuable this waterfront is and how dangerous it could be. So if you have any other questions, just feel free to ask, and thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Chief DeGrace, for your leadership and the important role you play and your team plays. And what I especially liked about your comments, Chief, is the ongoing working relationship you have with the Boston Fire Department, with the Boston Police Department. So just want to acknowledge that and say thank you. That's exactly what we need to be doing, is working together as a team. And it's one team and rescuing people especially in need. So I want to say thank you to our Massport team, our Boston Police and Boston Fire team for that close working relationship.
Thank you. It's a credit to the leadership over in Boston, in both the police and the fire department, and also with the Coast Guard. But thank you.
Thank you. I'm just checking to see if my colleagues are on. No, I'll get to my colleagues when they arrive. Let me start maybe with the fire commissioner or whoever wants to take it. The rings, Commissioner, that we were talking about, possibly, you know, we could possibly get some in restaurants. We'd have to have a plan and a structured plan on it, and training for the staff. What impact would they have when someone is in the water and you throw that ring to them? Does that significantly increase the odds of keeping that person alive?
I think it is a lifesaver. That's what they call lifesaver rings, right? No matter when we get the call, it's going to take us a few minutes to get there. And as Sergeant Coyne said, if it's cold water, the ability to tread water for a long time is going to become shorter and shorter. So that's going to keep somebody above water, and that makes rescue so much easier. You can also realize that there's currents, you know, the tides coming in, going out. If they go underwater, we're going to lose them. Even if they're treading water, they could be carried out further with the currents, which makes it a little bit harder to reach. So, but if they're on a life ring, we can pick them up with the boat, or survival suits. We have people on a line with that. They can swim out pretty far distance, and we become the life ring then, and then the people on shore just pull them in. So, but it's not that big of an expense, and it's something, you know, that I think if we have enough of them around, it's very easy to deploy. Even if you miss them, you get it close to them. Hopefully a person can get to it.
Thank you, Commissioner. Maybe following up with on that question with Sergeant Coyne or with the chief as well. I'm sorry, Chief, you have your hand up. Go ahead, Chief.
Yeah, just to emphasize the point by the commissioner, what it also does, it prevents other people from jumping into the water to complicate the issue of life safety and rescue. Instead, now you have one person in floating with a life ring, as opposed to someone else jumping in to try to save this person and meets the same fate as the person that went in initially. So, I mean, it's invaluable. It's kind of like having AEDs around. It keeps people alive until the rescuers can get there, and then we can make the save. And it's invaluable, in my opinion.
That's a great point.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Chief. Let me go to Sergeant Coyne. You know, I take, like all of you, I take this issue very seriously, because not only do I represent the area, but I also had the opportunity to serve 24 years in the U.S. Navy, and these types of issues we trained on and were educated on, and were an important part of our life, really. One concern I have, Sergeant Coyne, is maybe it's anecdotal, but I often read about, unfortunately, people that are at bars or restaurants, and they're, you know, unfortunately they're drinking, and that they might be in and around the waterfront in the downtown area, and they fall into the ocean. Maybe it's down towards like the aquarium area or some area like that. But someone drinking alcohol and then that falls into the ocean, they're really in danger of drowning when that happens. But is that common that happens, Sergeant, or is it just that we hear about it a couple times a year?
For a while, I've been with the dive team since 2005. And for a while, we had a winter for about 4 or 5 years. Then it kind of tapered off. Really, we haven't been called out really since when COVID shut everything down. Like I said, this incident that we're currently looking into right now may be an incident like that. We're just still trying to put together video and trying to get more information before we do a full water search. So I know a few years back when a young man fell off behind the Tower A bridge behind the Boston Garden, there was nobody around. It was the Charles River Basin. It was cold. It was dark, and there's a strong current there because of the flood control that keeps the Charles River levels at a proper level, so they don't flood out the Charles River Basin. These incidents do happen, and I know a lot of our licensing division tries to stay on top of these bars, that they're not over serving people. I was actually just having a conversation with Sergeant Gallagher prior to this meeting relative to the ongoing incident, but they try to stay on top of these bars because that's what the issue usually happens.
Mm-hmm.
When it happens. It's somebody's overserved, they're alone, it's 2 o'clock in the morning, they fall in somewhere and there's no exit. It's dark, they're confused, they're under the influence, and they're faced with a sheer wall. I've been on many a call, many a recovery search where that was the incident that led up to the actual cause of them falling in. I can think of a half dozen off the top of my head right now. But it's something, if there was some kind of, I don't know, like I said, if there was some kind of exit, and that's the issue, as the fire commissioner said, the ladders are going to face, they're going to degrade over time. And, you have electrolysis, so ungrounded electrical current and salt water, it eats up the metal. So it would be something that would be constantly replaced. There might be some more feasible ways of egress from the water. That's what I said earlier, that maybe looking into like a Jacob's ladder type system where people can get themselves up and out of harm's way. That's something that I said I'd like to take another look at. But as far as that's unfortunately, a lot of these docks and piers were built for commercial use over the years, and they were meant for ships to come up alongside. And these late hours, we don't have people out there. And that's unfortunate.
Thank you, Sergeant. And let me ask one final question, and maybe you all can respond to it. And then we'll go to our next panel. But we see a lot of people on boats in the summertime, and people that have boats, they might be an expert in operating the boat, but they also might not have, they also might have limited experience in it. What are we doing to educate people that have boats about boating safety, driving carefully, but also operating the boat appropriately, making sure that life rafts are there, and really discouraging the use of alcohol as it relates to boating is also a concern. I know it happens, but sometimes it almost seems like it's okay to go out on a boat and have a few drinks, but that's really the wrong message now. And we want to make sure that anyone that operates a boat is operating that boat carefully, safely, and appropriately. So just want to get your thoughts about that.
Well, in the city of Boston, first off, we have a no wake zone, and basically from the airport hotel to the Boston tuna, there's no wakes in the inner harbor, which causes a lot of damage, can knock people out of boats. And so we do active wake enforcement in the summertime during the height of the boating season. Also, the entire unit has been trained, as was mentioned before. A lot of the fire and law enforcement agencies in the area, we all belong to a group called CHAMP. It's the Commonwealth Harbor Masters and Marine Professionals Group. They conduct training under what is the NASBLA standard, which a bunch of coasties got together and standardized marine rescue training and operation. So this all falls into the fact that we all receive port grants, so we become regional assets and we all train together. We are trained in boating under the influence detection. It's slightly different than dry land sobriety test, where you can't have somebody walk in a straight line. There's a thing referred to as the seated battery, where this dexterity test that you do with your hands while seated. So everyone in the unit is trained on that, as well as officers from the State Police Marine Unit and the Mass Environmental Police, who are also stationed in Boston Harbor, and we all work well together. The Coast Guard Auxiliary does safety inspections. So relative to boats having required safety equipment, all boats are required to have, life jackets, something that they can throw, either a life ring or a seat cushion that can float. This way, if there is an incident where there's someone in the water, you can create what we like to refer to as a debris field. In an accident that happened this past summer out at day marker 5, when I have 2 officers on the midnight shift. They were the first on scene, and they had 7 people in the water. They basically had to create a debris field by throwing several life jackets overboard, and they had a triage who was the most serious in that group that had to get boarded first. While they were doing that, the other people had something to hold on to. And they were all eventually rescued. Massport Fire came over, U.S. Coast Guard responded, and 7 out of the 8 persons were recovered. So, I mean, as far as teamwork and as far as training, that's all paid off. As far as recreational boaters in the real world, most of the time, the first boat on scene is going to be a wreck boat or a lobster boat or somebody that's out there. I generally have 1 patrol boat for 42 square miles of water that we're responsible for covering. And oftentimes, we get out there and somebody has them on board. So we're very fortunate about that. Most of the marine professionals in the area monitor channel 13 and channel 16 on their radios. So they'll give us a shout if if there's something going on out on the harbor. As far as the wake enforcement, like I said, we actively pursue that July, August at the height of the boating season, because that's a situation, a wake in Boston Harbor is something that could eject somebody from a smaller boat into the water. And so we take that very seriously. My units are out there, and they're, for the most part, they're stopping the operators, explaining to them, asking where are they from, because some people are not familiar with the harbor. They're coming up from other states or whatever, and they're coming through and they're doing 20 knots when they should be doing clutch speed, basically. So we try to educate the operators, and from time to time we have to cite people, if they're repeat offenders or if they just don't seem to get it, and the safety that's involved in this.
Thank you, Sergeant. Chief, I don't know if you were trying to speak, but I think you're on mute.
No, I have nothing to add.
Okay.
I would like to just say the Coast Guard offers water safety courses. So for new boaters and as you go up to the amount of people you're going to be carrying on the boat, there's different licenses. So that's a great alternative for people, especially new boaters should be taking these courses. It'll help them know the rules of the road out there, and a lot of safety tips, as Sergeant Coyne was saying, that would be helpful. Also, they help enforce there is no drinking and driving when you're driving a boat as well. So that's a law.
Thank you, Commissioner. So Commissioner and Chief and the Sergeant, I'm going to go to the next panel. You can certainly stay on if you would like. It's not necessary. We probably won't go back to you. But I first want to say thank you for being here, for the important work you're doing. It's greatly appreciated across the city, across the Commonwealth also. And what I would like to do with this hearing is maybe get together again after the new year in February, have a similar hearing, and maybe focus a little more on the rings, and maybe trying to develop a pilot program with some of the restaurants or the hotels in a certain area, and maybe do a little bit of outreach to some of the residents and the restaurants and the property owners, and maybe we can get a pilot program going for next year. But I'll stay in contact with you, and I'll probably reach out to you guys again sometime in January or February, if that's okay.
Right, definitely.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
One last thing, Counselor. There was a bill that was sent up from the late Harbor Master Paul Malone from Weymouth, and it does involve licensing of boat operators in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Where it stands in committee, I don't know, but it was submitted probably last year sometime.
So yeah, I was thinking about that, Sergeant. So do you need a driver's license to operate a boat?
No, you don't. The only time licensing really comes into effect is when you're getting into commercial and you're required your Coast Guard licenses, whether it's a 6-pack to run a charter, or we're very similar to the Massport Fire. We have 100-ton certification.
Okay, yeah, that's something I would support, the proposed legislation of making sure that someone has a license to drive a small boat anyway. I think it protects him and her, but it protects the public as well.
The Boston Harbor Safety Committee, which is an area, regional people in the maritime industry, they have a meeting coming up in December, and I can check on the status of where that bill sits at this time. Okay,
let's stay in contact, Sergeant. Again, I want to say thank you to Sergeant Coyne and Chief DeGrace and Commissioner Dempsey and Tommy Butler as well. So greatly appreciate you being here. Again, not necessary for you guys to stay on. You're more than welcome to, but I'm going to go to the next panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I would like to ask the next panel to join us, and that includes James Morton, who's the CEO of the YMCA. I would like to ask Amy Gamachi Turner, also with the YMCA of Greater Boston, and Sarah McCammon as well. Sarah is a resident of the 4 Point Neighborhood Association and active with Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance. So I also want to acknowledge the support and testimony and advocacy and leadership of the 4 Point Neighborhood Association. They provided excellent feedback to me and this committee on the importance of this issue, and they actually recommended to me to have such a hearing. So when residents reach out to me and ask me to conduct a hearing, I usually do it, and especially if I think it's an important issue such as this. So I want to say thank you to the 4 Point Neighborhood Association. Let me now go to Sarah from the Harborside Neighborhood Alliance. Sarah, thank you for being with us. Would you like to offer an opening statement or an opening comment, Sarah?
Thank you, Councilor Flynn. I'd be happy just to introduce myself and why we as an organization are very interested. Also, thank you for the kind words to the FP&A, the 4 Point Neighborhood Association. They are a member of our organization as well. As I mentioned, my name is Sarah McCammon. I'm Executive Director of the Harborfront Neighborhood Alliance. We bring together neighborhood associations to ensure that resident voices affect the growth, development, and sustainability of an accessible Boston waterfront, from East Boston to Charlestown, to the North End, to downtown, South Boston, and Dorchester. And as residents, we live on the waterfront and we enjoy an active harbor. As advocates for a public, accessibly inclusive and resilient waterfront, it's vital that we make the waterfront a welcoming and safe place to be. I look forward to being on the panel with these esteemed colleagues.
Thank you, Sarah, for your testimony, for your leadership. Ron, I was just wondering if the team from the YMCA is on yet?
We're checking now, Councilor.
Yeah, James Morton just raised his hand, Ron. Sarah, let me go to you. I know you're active in the 4 Point Neighborhood Association, and one of the things that always concerned me, Sarah, is basically from South Station walking to Summer Street. And I asked Sergeant Coyne this, walking Summer Street heading towards South Boston, especially people walking that late at night. Maybe it's a summer night. There's so many avenues where that person, unfortunately, if they're under the influence of alcohol and they're drinking, could fall over into the ocean, whether it's on Summer Street or it's near the New England Aquarium area, and people making bad decisions. But I think having those life rings might be helpful. Just want to get your thoughts on that, Sarah.
Absolutely, Councilor Flynn. We definitely agree with the panel that presented before us, the commissioner and the sergeant and gentleman from Massport, that having life rings is critical. We see that people fall in, as you mentioned, from bridges, from the shoreline, and to be able to have life rings readily accessible in some of those locations and more frequently along our waterfront, I think it would be a valuable way to reduce water rescue or water, definitely water recovery.
What other concerns do you have in and around the Fort Point area, certainly in the South Boston waterfront, the Seaport area, in and around the Moakley Courthouse? What are some of the concerns you have in that area as well, Sarah?
Sure. I think that just like around the harbor, we're seeing incredible growth. Obviously, we see that in the Seaport. That's just kind of been a neighborhood that's come into being in the last few years. We're seeing greater development coming to the Fort Point Channel, and even around the downtown waterfront as there's new plans there. So we see that there's more people as a result of this development, obviously coming to these waterfronts to either live, to work, and to visit. And with that, and whether they're visiting the waterfront and restaurants, or they're actually on the water themselves, and given the increase in the pandemic of people wanting to be outside and be on the water, this has become a very critical issue for us, one that we think there's multiple solutions, from the water rescue devices that were mentioned, for bringing in more ladders along the edge, the hard edges of seawalls with grab chains. I know that both the sergeant and the commissioner mentioned that this would be a solution. We also want to reiterate that they need to be maintained if they are going to be installed. And for example, there was a ladder across from Christopher Columbus Park. I'm not sure the history on it, but it is there no longer. So it just speaks to the importance of maintenance and to having these ladders, really throughout the Boston waterfront as a way for people to get out of the water. I think the commissioner also spoke to, the invaluableness of, and the sergeant and others, of having those life rings available to throw to keep somebody afloat until water rescue can get there. There's also the importance of training those people. And I would be also interested, as the public may be the ones responding, to having that training of what is the best way to throw a water bag or a life saver into a person. And the other issue that in terms of rescue is the fact that how do you identify a water location of where someone needs rescue in a way that the responders can find quickly? And as we look, we'd like the city to consider, and partners, state partners, is there some sort of a marker system? And maybe with call boxes like you have on water taxis, or other ways where we can then more readily pinpoint where the rescue is needed in those communications. But those are just some of my thoughts. And I know we've got some other panelists on, and I'd be happy to say, more as time permits.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Thank you for being with us and the important testimony you provided. We're also joined by James Morton from the YMCA. And James, I'm so glad that you're here with us. One of the reasons I wanted to invite you is, over the last several years, one of the issues of great concern to me, and I've talked to the Boston Public Schools, and I talked to the BCYF, Boston Children, Youth, and Families, that operate many of the swimming pools in Boston. One of the concerns for me, especially, and for residents of Boston, we don't necessarily provide swimming lessons to children in the city of Boston. My two children, we were able to pay to have them have swimming lessons at a private pool. I was fortunate enough, my wife was fortunate enough to have money to do that. But other kids, other students aren't so fortunate. Many kids, students, communities of color don't have that same option. And my goal is to try to get as many youth in Boston with swimming lessons, teach them about water safety, teach them about respecting the ocean, respecting the lakes and pools, in how important they are, but also how dangerous they are.
Right.
And so, having said that, I just wanted to say thank you to James Morton for being here. And James, this is if you'd like to offer an opening statement.
Sure. First of all, let me begin by thanking you, Councilor Flynn, and your colleague, Councilor Edwards, for elevating this really critically important conversation. I remember as a high school student in Wisconsin, where we had lots of lakes, we were not allowed to graduate from high school unless we could prove that we could swim.
Mhm.
And then I went on to the university, and we couldn't graduate from the university unless we could pass a swim test. But that was a different, an age and time. But I think there were lessons in that we can learn for today. I really appreciate all that we've heard this morning about the infrastructure that exists in the city of Boston to keep all of us safe and keep our waterways and the harbor safe from drownings. And what a tremendous infrastructure we already have in place. And clearly there's more that we can do. And there also appears to be an incredible appetite to do more. But with that said, I believe that the first line of defense to drowning is to teach children how to swim. And also to teach them water safety. How to, as you say, how to respect and appreciate this beautiful, waterfront, this 45 plus miles of waterfront shoreline that we have in the city of Boston, how to respect it and appreciate it and preserve it, but also how to keep themselves safe around it. And so, we've seen an increase in the number of drownings, 2018, 99 drownings, and 2020, 125 drownings in Massachusetts. And we're probably, unfortunately, going to exceed that this year. And as we all, I'm sure, take the position that one drowning is too much. And so in terms of introductory remarks, I'll leave it at that, but I will offer some very specific strategies and tactics that we're employing at the YMCA in partnership with a number of other organizations in the city at the appropriate time in this conversation.
Well, thank you, James, and we look forward to hearing about them. We appreciate your important work and your important leadership of the YMCA. I'm also joined by my colleague from Alston and Brighton, Councilor Liz Braden, who's with us. Councilor Braden, would you like to offer a statement?
Thank you, Councillor Flynn. I'm grabbing a snack, so I don't sound very. This is a really important issue, and I really am excited to be part of the conversation and listen. We out here in Alston, Brighton, we're along the Charles River. We don't have seafront necessarily, but the proficiency in being able to swim is really vitally important. And we're excited about the prospect of the DCR rebuilding the DCR pool that was down at the bottom of Brook Street in Brighton. So we're anticipating that happening sometime in the not too distant future. So that will offer another amenity for our students to learn to swim in the neighborhood. I think we have that was a pool. We have a YMCA pool, and we have a pool at up in Cleveland Circle. So we don't have a lot of infrastructure in terms of pools for folks to be able to learn to swim. So I look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor Braden. So James, can you talk about any type of partnerships or what you're doing specifically? What is the YMCA doing specifically to educate, train, to provide swimming lessons to the youth of Boston, but especially students of color that may not have been exposed to the ocean or pools or to any type of swimming lessons?
Yes, so thank you very much. And then I might even offer a suggestion as how we can move forward to create even greater safety. But as you know, we've got 9 YMCA's in the city of Boston, and all of those YMCA's have pools. And so and at every location, we're providing swim lessons in every neighborhood that we have a YMCA, and that's an ongoing a strategy that we offer to make sure that we're providing swim lessons to everyone in our community, regardless of their ability to pay for those lessons. We have scholarships and financial support so that no person is denied, no child would be denied access to a swim lesson or a water safety opportunity because of an inability to pay. And then in the summer, we have 25 camps throughout Greater Boston, and at many of those camps, there is a waterfront of some sort or another. And our responsibility there is to teach water safety at all of our camps, and also just to provide swim lessons to make sure that all children who are in the water can do so safely. But here's what we're really super excited about, and that is as a result of a partnership with the city of Boston and Blue Cross Blue Shield, we were able to put together an initiative called Swim Safely Boston. And as part of that initiative, 300 children will be provided with free swim lessons at our YMCA pools. We will also train 60 high school students to be lifeguards, which is also an incredible need that we have here. There's a shortage of lifeguards in the city of Boston. Now, because of that partnership, we were able to add a new partner to that effort, and that's Boston Triathlon. And they're supporting the effort by providing us with the resources to provide free swim lessons to another 300 children. So now that's 600 children who will get free lessons in the city of Boston, while we're also training 60 potential lifeguards for next summer. And we are looking to grow that program because, of course, 600 children is not enough. It is a start. It's a great start, but it's not enough. We want to make sure that every child in the city knows how to swim. So that's one strategy that we're working on. The second strategy that I'm also very excited about is working with Superintendent Casilius of the Boston Public Schools and her team. We are developing a 3rd grade swim program so that every 3rd grader in the city of Boston, and there are 4,000 3rd graders, so that every 3rd grader is taught to swim and becomes proficient at swimming. And so we're beginning to develop a pilot for that initiative. And the general theme is that we'll start that swim initiative in 3 Boston public schools that have pools, elementary schools and middle schools. And we'll also identify 3 of our YMCA pools that will also participate in that. And so our goal will be to serve as many 3rd graders as part of that pilot as we can, in hopes of expanding it to serve all 4,000 3rd graders over the course of time. And that's a very exciting opportunity and a wonderful partnership between the YMCA and our public schools, Boston Public Schools. Now, I shared I have an idea. I remember my days at the Springfield YMCA, some 15 years ago. And in Springfield, there was a program sponsored by DCR where the YMCA would provide training for high school aged young men and women, training them to be lifeguards. And we would not be paid as an organization until those young people passed the state exam, qualifying them as lifeguards. And one of the things that they were guaranteed, the successful graduates of that program, is they were guaranteed a job. So one, they were provided with training. They were secondly provided with a certification. And thirdly, they were provided with a guaranteed summer job if they completed it. Now that's a strategy that, I'd like to see us grow and expand upon and develop here in the city of Boston. And with all the waterfronts and shorelines that we have, obviously there's clearly a need and demand for lifeguards. And I'd like to see us develop something along those lines. And then lastly, let me thank Sarah for the great work that she's doing. And that is absolutely wonderful work. And then there's another coalition of individuals who've come together, and they're identified as the Coalition for a Resilient and Inclusive Waterfront. So that's like this incredibly diverse group of organizations serving the communities across the city of Boston that have come together to make sure that our waterfront in Boston is available to all residents. In particular, making sure that our Black and Brown communities have access to the waterfront. And again, while we're providing access, we have to make sure that we're providing folks with swim lessons and water safety. And so I'm very excited that you've elevated this conversation. I'm happy to be here with Sarah as we try to figure out what's the best way to join forces to create the greatest opportunities for access to the water and that safe access. And I'm so happy to hear that there's this another whole cadre of folks working on the infrastructure to make sure that the infrastructure provides additional safety. So thank you for Councilor Flynn for bringing this forward.
Thank you, James. Your testimony was excellent. It was very helpful, and I'm so glad that the YMCA is playing a critical role in educating and training and helping our students here in Boston and our young people, especially our communities of color. That's an issue. I'm proud to represent probably the most diverse district in the city of Boston. I have a large Chinese community. I have a large Latinx community. I represent the largest number of residents living in public housing.
Yes.
And the residents that live in public housing, they live probably a half a mile away from the ocean. But I do know that they have not been exposed to swimming lessons. So what you are doing, James, through the various partnerships is very helpful. So I want to say thank you to the YMCA. Let me ask my colleague before I start, before I ask a question, let me ask my colleague, Councilor Braden, if she wants to ask any questions to either James or Sarah at this time.
No, I really, I don't have any questions at the moment. I think increasing access to swim lessons, and I'm really excited about the third grade discussion with the BPS. I think all of that is critically important. I myself am not a proficient swimmer. And I did take a class at the YMCA in which 95% of the folks in the class were Irish adults who had never learned to swim. We have a great respect for the water, but very few of us are actually good swimmers. But I did go to a little country primary school in Northern Ireland, and our teacher, the head teacher, had the experience of having to life save a child in difficulties in the ocean in the previous summer. And she came back and she took all the kids to the local swimming hole and started to teach them to swim or even be able to tread water and keep themselves safe after that experience. So I really feel that this is a very, very important life skill for everyone to have. So I really applaud your efforts and hope that we can get that to happen. Thank you.
So Councilor Bryden, please come back so we can increase your proficiency. And I am constantly taking swim lessons because I want to be able to save my own life in the water and so also be an example to others to just as an adult And I'm an adult in my 60s. And so I'm in the water trying to make sure that I can be the best swimmer that I can to protect myself and others when the time comes. And by the way, I think that draw to the water comes from being born in Liverpool. And so having that birthplace on the shore of the ocean
Yeah.
kind of put it in my soul to make sure I can swim.
Yeah, it's a dramatic, it's a really, for Irish people, there's tremendous respect of the water and the ocean, but a very high percentages of us don't actually swim. So I might take you up on your offer and get back down to the pool and get somebody to teach me how to swim a bit better. Thank you.
We'll make sure
it's
that
very
happens.
important, it's all as part of it's a mindset, being afraid of the water.
It is.
And we see that as we talk to different people and trying to open and make our waterfront more inclusive, that it's not only just students and children needing to learn how to swim, but a lot of times adults have not
Yes.
had that opportunity. And as parents, they feel a little trepidatious about bringing their children to the water's edge because they don't know how to swim, so they don't know how to protect them. So there's, this is very exciting. Love to hear about the expansion of these programs. They're absolutely necessary. I hear from my members in East Boston and Charlestown and around the waterfront that the minute swimming classes open, the programs fill, they're at capacity. So I think this ability to grow, not only just what you are doing, James, with the Y, but also with the city, maybe through their youth, is it Boston Youth and Family Services? But to have more partners, as you said, including some great partnerships that you all have to bring these swimming lessons to everyone, especially just not only those people that live near the water that need to know how to swim, but the people that are in our more in our neighborhoods that would like to come to the water and feel comfortable and safe doing that. So that's definitely an important part of, I think, our water infrastructure and something to hopefully expand.
Well, thank you, Sarah. The comments by Councilor Braden were very interesting to me. As in, Councilor Braden, you mentioned that when you were younger, you weren't exposed to swimming lessons, and I'm just thinking now that Boston is, we have a large immigrant community in Boston. It might be 40% or so of the population, but the young people in Boston, we have a large immigrant community. And I'm just thinking out loud that they may not also have been exposed to swimming lessons at their own country that they were born in. They came to Boston, but it's critically important. I mean, that lesson from Councilor Braden really hit home, but it's really important to make sure that our immigrant communities are also part of the of swimming lessons, and making sure that we teach them the importance of water safety and respect for the ocean, because they also live wherever they live, and they're only 1 or 2 miles away. And when you get to high school, one of the first things people want to do is go to the ocean, or go to the pool with their friends, or go to a cookout and then go to the lake. So people often jump in the ocean without knowing how to swim. So we want to make sure that we do everything we can to provide the safest environment for people, but also to educate and train our young people, especially. So my question for you, James, is, you mentioned the program where you're possibly going to train 30 people for lifeguards. Are you going to also, of the 30 people, are we also looking to make sure that we include a diverse group of young people for that training, whether they're immigrant families, whether they're communities of color, or certain areas of the city that might not traditionally have been exposed to water safety?
Yeah, it's a great question. And we're working on where that training is going to take place. And my dream is that it will take place at Madison Park High School. And the reason why I would like for it to be there is they've got a wonderful aquatic center, one, and two, it's easily accessible. And three, there are 2 high schools there between Madison Park and O'Brien. We should be able to draw students from the diverse communities that surround that particular location. And so that would be one location, and then we can choose another location so that we can draw young people from, the other side of our great city here. So that we want to make sure that the lifeguards that we train are certainly going to be reflective of the communities we serve and the children that they will ultimately be keeping safe. I'd like to also share that, how often do we say to ourselves in the city of Boston, and I think we say it often because it's true, we are an asset-rich community. So think about this. We've got Boys and Girls Club. We got Boston Centers for Families and Children. We got BPS. We got the YMCA. We have all of those entities manage and control pools. What if we activated every pool in our city to make sure that every child had access to swim lessons? And we trained lifeguards at all of those different locations, because they're all located throughout the city and every neighborhood that exists in the city. We could have a significant impact on water safety and reduce drownings. And maybe our goal should be to eliminate drownings in 2022 by virtue of creating this network of organizations deeply committed and supporting, partnering with you and Sarah and all the other organizations in the city committed to water safety. I think that's an opportunity because we do have all these pools, many of which sit idle, which it's a shame to have any pool sitting idle when we have such a great need. And it's a life skill. It's a life-saving skill. It's a life expanding or extending skill. It's a healthy habit that you can do for your entire lifetime. And there aren't a whole lot of those activities that you can do from birth to death, like swimming. That's a morbid way of thinking about it, but it's true.
Well, thank you, Jim. I'm going to ask Sarah, at this time, we're going to offer closing statements or a closing message. Hold on for 1 second. Ron or Kerry, do we have any public testimony?
No, Counselor. Just a written testimony.
Okay. And Sarah, you provided that written testimony, I believe.
Actually, it was one of our members, FPNA, but yes,
Okay.
I think that's, and I will also, I apologize not getting my remarks in beforehand, but I will also send written remarks in.
Okay. So before we go to final statements, I was going to ask my council colleague, Councilor Braden. I know you have your hand up, Councilor Braden.
Yeah, and there was one other thing that that I wanted to add to the conversation is educating adults and everyone about how to recognize a riptide, because when there's a riptide, very often the place that's most appealing is where the water's nice and smooth and it doesn't look too treacherous, and that's exactly where the problem is. So I know I have friends who are open water swimmers, and one in particular has swum the English Channel, and she's very concerned that open water swimming is a particular skill set, and but if you're well prepared and have there are ways to enjoy swimming at the shore that are safe without putting a complete ban on the activity. So I think trying to take advantage of the folks in the neighborhoods, like especially South Boston, you have a long tradition of open water swimming. To take advantage of those expertise of folks who are experienced open water swimmers to educate others on water safety. Because one thing how to recognize treacherous conditions and how to be as safe as possible when you're doing that. So that's another piece to the conversation I wanted to add. And thank you for your work, James and Sarah. I think this is really critically important. And that's all I have, Councillor Flynn.
Well, thank you, Councillor Braden, for being here and for your testimony, and your comments were very helpful in this subject. And we have I have a different perspective of this subject from listening to Councillor Braden's comments as well. So I really appreciate you being here, Councillor Braden, and offering your personal experience about this. So thank you. At this time, could I ask Sarah if you would like to offer a closing statement or comment?
Thank you for the opportunity, first of all, to be on the panel, for your advocacy in this work and for holding this hearing. There are a couple of things I'd just like to reiterate, if I may. One, in terms of the water rescue infrastructure, we'd love to see the city and state coming together to install a notification or numbering system along the shoreline to provide a more precise location for water rescue and reducing the time that someone's in the water. We also are a strong proponent of the life rings and having those more frequently along our shoreline, bringing in those waterfront properties to also assist in this area and training not only their staff, but also the public as well. And the importance to have language access, to have signage in multiple languages on instructions on life savers and life rings, and also notification and location flags maybe of ladders that already exist, and hopefully more ladders that are going to be coming along the Boston Harbor with grab chains to facilitate people getting out of the water as soon as possible, whether they fell off a boat or whether they fell off the shoreline or however they ended up in the water. We also wanted just to highlight that there is Mass State Law, Chapter 91, that provides the public access to the waterfront. And for those properties that are directly adjacent, they're a combination of city, state, and private owned properties, and having best practices and a pilot program that you mentioned would highlight a consistent safety model that would prevent, hopefully, people from falling in the water, enable bystanders to assist more quickly. And we would be pleased to share the solutions that have been talked about today with Mass DEP, who could then also reinforce by putting these requirements into their Chapter 91 licenses that are part of the waterfront properties that are along our harbor. So those are some of the ways that we look forward to participating with the city and with state partners and private partners, such as James, and all the activation of pools in the city. It's a very exciting idea for those swimming lessons. So thank you again for the opportunity. We look forward to working with you all further in this initiative.
And thank you, Sarah. James, thank you for being here with us, and just want to give you the opportunity to offer a closing comment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Flynn. I'll make my remarks very brief. I'll endorse much of what Sarah has shared with us. I believe she kind of summarized it quite well. Some of the ways in which we can make sure that our city of Boston is the safest city with an enormous waterfront, a beautiful waterfront that we have. It is a gem. We are blessed to have such a naturally beautiful thing to offer to the citizens of our city. And then just say that we think that maybe one of our goals as a city in 2022 is that strategy of no drownings in our city. And let us continue to keep our eye and focus on making sure that water safety is something made available to adults and children throughout the city, and that we provide as many swim lessons to as many adults and children as we possibly can to keep everyone safe and see if we can accomplish that goal of 0 drownings in our city, because any drowning is too many. So thank you very much for elevating this issue. Thank you, Councilor Braden, for your participation and comments and guidance to us. We appreciate being a part of this, and thank you, Sarah, for everything you're doing in support of these issues as well. Happy to be a part of this team working on this important issue.
Well, thank you, James, and thank you, Sarah. And as I mentioned to the previous panel, I probably will have another working session sometime next year. I'll make sure I include you, invite you. So thank you for being here with us. And the comments that you made, Sarah, you talked also about language access. And thank you for bringing that important part of the discussion up. I feel to mention that in my comments. So you provided language access that's critical as part of this discussion as well. So thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Jim, and to the team at the YMCA, the harbor and the ocean and pools and lakes for everybody. Boston's an inclusive city, and because we're an inclusive city, the ocean belongs to not one particular group, but to every group. But we want every group to enjoy the ocean in lakes and pools. But to enjoy an ocean and lake, we also want to provide the best education, training, water safety program that we can. So I think it's about working together with city officials, with state officials, with our leaders such as the YMCA and various other organizations that are dedicated to this outreach and this support. So on behalf of myself, on behalf of Councilor Braden, I want to say thank you to James and to Sarah. Thank you to Ron and Kerry from the central staff. And I already thanked the earlier panel for being here as well. So at this time, this meeting is over. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.